So there are still people joining. Let's wait another minute or so. So hello everyone to all the people joining.
Okay, also a warm welcome to all the new people.
Hello everyone.
Okay, looks like it calmed down a little bit, the entry of new people. So yeah, thank you very much for joining today's webinar, Transforming Internal Audits with AI, a shift from rule-based to dynamic insights. Let's start with some housekeeping rules. So for all of you who have been already attending our last webinars, this webinar will also last about 45 minutes. And so we have enough time in the end to answer all your questions. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use on the top the Q&A button. There you can hand in any questions you have, and after the webinar, Moritz and me, we will try to answer all the questions you have as good as we can. If there are any questions we were not able to answer at the moment, or the time is running out, we will get back to you afterwards via email to clarify all the open questions. As you can also see by the red button on the top, this webinar is being recorded. The recordings will be shared together with all the slides we will show today with you in the end. So, or after the webinar, it will be available on YouTube as well. So you can share it also with some colleagues who are interested in this without any need for logging in or giving your contact credentials away. Okay. What are we going to do today? So for all of you who are new to the webinar series of DAB, I will shortly introduce you to DAB, DAB Datenanalysen und Beratung GmbH, so our company, what we are doing. And then we will have a look into the business challenge which we tried to face with our solution we are presenting today, the so-called DAB-DIN. Then Moritz will take over and will explain a little bit in detail what exactly are anomalies, because what we are trying to do is we try to find or detect anomalies with our solution for you as the internal auditors, a very interesting part. Then we will take some time in exploring what exactly is the setup of the DAB solution. So what technical stuff do you need? What kind of tools are we using for finding anomalies in your data? Then we will show you some real-world examples. Moritz will guide you very deeply through one example, and I will show you later on, also in Power BI, a little bit on what is possible. And then in the end, we will have some questions and answers. So feel free to type in your questions all the time during the webinar via the Q&A session. Okay, who is DAB? DAB is a company founded in 2004. We are located in the Bavarian forest, or close to the Bavarian forest in Deggendorf, so Bavaria. And we have around 50 employees. And what we have been doing for the last 20 years is developing some innovative software solutions for the extraction and analysis of data, and especially for SAP, but not only for SAP. So we have a various range of products with what we serve around 250 customers from more than 20 countries, so very international so far. Some of our customers you can see on the next slide, and there you can also see that we have a lot of different customers from different countries. So we have producing customers, we have some logistics customers, we have chemical companies, we have companies from the food industries. So a wide range of companies which we are able to serve with our solutions. And that means that our solutions are not just made like for one kind of company. We can do public companies, private companies, public sector as well. So we try to provide solutions which fit most of the market. Who is providing that insight today? I mean, I've been talking already a little bit, but on my side, I have today with me Moritz Lang, who is our data scientist and mostly the brain behind our AI algorithms. So he will take you into the world of AI, while I, on the other slide, am more the business person on our side. I'm on the one hand global partner manager, managing all the partner business from around the world with us, but also I am a consultant for the last 7 years already, and know our customers' need and how our customers are using our data analytics to serve their needs. And that's why I would like to start also with the business challenge itself we are trying to tackle. Internal audit is what we try to serve with our today's solution. What is internal audit, or what has internal audit been doing? So since we are a company for the last 20 years, internal audits, or we brought a lot of analytics into the internal audit world. And most of these analytics are rule-based. So a rule-based approach is something where you need a rule and where you need a fixed question which you can answer. For example, as we can see here, all invoices without a purchase order. That's a simple question you can ask to your data. Please show me all the invoices which do not have a purchase order linked to them. So these rules, usually which you are asking to your data with the data analytics, conventional data analytics, are usually rules which are similar to the guidelines of your company. For you as internal audit, you are also looking if your internal control system, your SOC system or whatsoever is functional. And so the rules you are asking onto your data are similar to the guidelines, to your internal controls, and to your whole rule-based system in the company. That also means that the rules should usually be known by anyone who is part of the process. So when you're working in accounts payable, you should know that you should not book any invoices without a purchase order, or other things as well, no manual payments above a certain threshold or whatsoever. But in the end, it doesn't mean that there are no, or that every rule needs to be followed by 100%. We know from invoices without purchase order that it's totally okay for some things that you can breach the rule. So, for example, for electricity supply, water supply, etc., this is usually something where you have some contracts and not an actual purchase order. So, therefore, it would be totally fine to have or an invoice without a purchase order, and that makes rule-based insights sometimes a little problematic, as you might gain a lot of false positives through your data analytics. And that's our next point, that we have quite some weaknesses in the old approach or in the conventional approach of rule-based data analytics. I mean, you can run 100, 200 analytics every day, but you need someone who looks it up. So that limits the amount of rules you can ask to your data, or the data analytics you can run quite significantly. And I would say that there's only a very limited amount of rules you can actually control, but the possibility of making mistakes or workarounds, that is almost unlimited. And also, if you want to find some fraud, some not okay processes, some bookings, some documents which are quite strange, I would say that it's not just you who knows the rules which you are looking for, but also the people who want to perform some fraudulent activities know these rules. So that's why if you are looking for, on this example, manual payments before invoices without a purchase order, and this is something you do on a very regular basis, then someone who wants to perform fraud also knows this and might then use another way on how to perform fraud. And also, just because you comply with the rules, that doesn't mean that you do not do some creative workarounds. So you can always then have some dummy purchase orders or split your invoices, etc., etc. And there can be some creative workarounds to comply with the rules, but which are not okay. So, and when you want to tackle all these things I've just told you in the last minutes, the rules you have to formulate are very, very complex. And that complexity is very hard to do, especially if the rules can differ a little bit in between your different companies, your different subsidiaries, etc., etc. And that's why we thought it might be a good idea not to just look rule-based for like rule breaches or where a process does not comply with a rule, but to find some so-called anomalies. But what anomalies are, that's what Moritz is going to tell us now.
Exactly. So let's first answer the question, what are anomalies? And to answer this question, let's talk about coffee. Here on the left side at the slide, you can see a table, and this table contains around about 20 different coffee sorts from all over the world. So in the first column, you can see the coffee sort, starting with Brazil Pulp Natural and so on. The second column is the roast. We have light, medium light, and dark ones. Then the next column is the origin. So our coffee sorts from today do either come from Brazil, Colombia, or Taiwan. And we have the price per kg in US dollar. And at least the last column, we have some sort of rating. Now, if we take 3 columns of that table and show it in a scatter plot, like on the right side, we have the price per kg in US dollar on the x-axis, we have the rating on the y-axis, and the coffee sort is used to label the points in the scatter plot. And now you can see, of course, the higher the price, the better the rating. So the trend line in the plot shows us and indicates the higher the price, the higher the rating. I think this information is pretty intentional. Now, we plotted 3 columns, so the price, the rating, and the coffee sort. And now you can see that Taiwan Geisha Honey, that coffee sort, stands out. Why? Because the price is nearly 60 US dollar. And if we have a closer look in the scatter plot, we can see the second highest price is only round about 30 US dollars. So this coffee sort from Taiwan is nearly double the price as the second highest one. So this row, this coffee sort in this table is an outlier. And the question is, what are outliers or anomalies? So both terms refer to the same thing. Those outliers and anomalies are synonyms. And an anomaly is just simply a row in a table that has at least a single statistically unusual value. And here the unusual value is the price, because that one is pretty high compared to the rest. But if we change the perspective on how we look at the data, so if we take 3 other columns, so another combination like origin, price, and rating, then we would have slightly another scatter plot on the right, because now again we have the price on the x-axis, we have the rating on the y-axis, and now for the labels we use the origin and not the coffee sort. And now if we take a closer look at the visualization, we can see that one can interpret the data as 3 clusters. So on the left side we have that blue cluster with the Brazilian coffee sorts. In the middle we have that orange cluster with all the coffee sorts from Colombia. And then on the right we have another cluster, the third one, that contains all the coffee sorts from Taiwan, except that one from Brazil. So we changed the perspective, we used another combination of columns, and now of course we get other outliers, because now this Brazilian one, that one that refers to the third row in the table, is now an outlier because that coffee sort is, so to say, in the wrong cluster if we interpret the data as clusters. And this leads us to the answer. So what are anomalies? An anomaly is a row in a table that contains at least one statistically unusual value. And that's it. So now we answered that question. And Philip, can you go a little bit more into detail on how we at DAB detect such anomalies?
Yeah, thank you, Moritz. I mean, detecting outliers in the coffee roast, I mean, we can go to our coffee machine and say, okay, this is not tasting good. That might also be an outlier. And I think we at DAB know what we're talking about in that case. But if you want to perform these outliers for your whole bunch of SAP data, we need a little bit of stronger engine than just like the view of a person. And what you saw, I mean, we have now looked on only a very few different things. So price and rating, or roast and rating, or price. So these are not many things we are looking at. And so we need a powerful engine to search for. And since last year, we joined a strategic partnership with Microsoft. And beside our other products like ACL or Diligent, which we also are serving further, we now gained a Microsoft partnership and try to also use the power of the two, Microsoft and DAB, for the data extraction, for the data analytics, for process mining, but also for such use cases like fraud detection, anomalies, internal audit, internal controls, etc. And what we use in that partnership, we can show you on the next slide, where you can see what kind of products are part of the solution we used in the whole Microsoft stack. So some of you might already know from the last webinars our data analytics engine, the so-called DAB Nexus. DAB Nexus is our core engine for SAP Data Analytics. So that pulls out the data from SAP and analyzes the data and then puts it somewhere where you want to have it. The content itself is provided by the DAB Analytics suite. So this is our standard content for SAP. So you just click a few buttons and then you will get the outlier detection or the anomaly detection. This is all part of the DAB Analytics suite that denormalizes your data, so pulls all the tables, puts it together into new big so-called base tables or process tables, where you then have, for example, for general ledger, all important columns and rows which you need to look deeper into your data. Then also we try to find some outliers, and the next step would then be like looking after the follow-up of that outliers. And therefore we are using the Microsoft Power Platform, especially in this case Power BI. So as I said, DAB Nexus is working on SQL servers, which can be on the one hand in your Azure cloud or down in your cellar somewhere on premise. So we can make a data stream which takes the data and pushes it into a Microsoft Power BI, where we can then visualize all the data. We can share it with our colleagues. We can have dashboardings, etc., with all our anomalies we can find. And if you want to follow up on these, we also have a small tool called DAB Link, which is a tool which offers you a possibility where you can just with one click jump directly into the corresponding SAP transaction to follow up that specific document inside of the SAP system. And that closes the gap between your data analytics and the SAP system. And to make this a little bit more visual, the approach, we also have visualized that process. So you can see we take the data from your SAP system with a long time on the market data extraction solution, very performant one, and then use DAB Nexus for the base table creation, as I told you. And on that base tables, we let the DEAN, detecting anomalies, that's the abbreviation for it, we let that run. That's all part of the analytics suite itself. Then we are visualizing these results in Power BI on the Microsoft Power Platform, and you can follow up the results also in there. Together with the DAB link, you can then jump directly back into your SAP system to easily follow up on all these results we will give you. And as I said, we are in a strategic partnership with Microsoft, and it should be also easy to get information about that product. Also, to get that product also purchased via Microsoft, we have it available on Azure Marketplace. So the core solution itself can be purchased on the Azure Marketplace already, so you don't need to do any new purchasing through third parties or whatsoever. So everything can be purchased as well on the same place where you purchase some other stuff from Microsoft. So our core DAB Nexus is available on Microsoft, and if you need any special offerings, it is also possible to give you some private offerings, some test licenses for €0. All is possible also via the Azure Marketplace. And that shows our deep connection also into the whole Microsoft environment. But that was enough for the technical setup. We now want to know what exactly the results will be if we run the solution as shown in the last slide. So Moritz, can you give us one example on maybe the general ledger base?
Of course. So previously we talked about that coffee sort table. Now let's get a little bit more serious and let's talk about anomalies based on the general ledger. So we at DAB, we have this concept of base tables. And in base tables, we aggregate and join a lot of information from different SAP tables into a single, very big and large table. And that's the reason why we call it base table. So what does this mean a little bit more in detail? As you can see on this slide, here we can see some columns and some rows of such a base table based on the general ledger. And the first 4 columns are simply used as a primary key so that each row can be uniquely specified. And the primary key here in this GL or general ledger base table consists of the company code, the fiscal year, the accounting document number, and the number of the line item in that given accounting document. So these first 4 columns are the primary key because each row, so each line in a document, can uniquely specified via exactly those 4 values and columns. Okay, now it gets interesting because now the next columns like vendor, user, posting key, and so on, those columns, so this information is joined and aggregated from lots of different SAP tables. And in our general ledger base table, we have round about 200 columns from different SAP tables aggregated in a single table. Yeah, and that's the reason why we call it general ledger base table. So everything or a lot of information from GL, so from the general ledger, is here in this table, in this base table. And now, if we use Dean, and as Philip said, Dean is our AI for detecting anomalies. If we hand over this or such a GL base table to Dean, Dean then will automatically find anomalies, so rows in the GL base table that are anomalies. As we answered the question previously, what are anomalies? So anomalies are rows that have at least a single unusual value or a combination of unusual values. So we have on the left side a very large table. So the GL base table has 200 columns, and it is not unusual that we have a couple of million rows, and we hand it over to Dean. Dean is an AI. It is a software module of us, of the DAB, and Dean detects anomalies. And on the right side then, we can see a results table from Dean. So this table on the right contains all the anomalies Dean has detected from the left input table. And now again, we can see the primary key, and yeah, the primary key is a boring thing, but here you can see we can always match between right and left because of the primary key. And now the cool thing is, Dean has a very comfortable feature. Dean tells you which rows are outliers, and on top of that, it explains to you in a pretty compromised way why the given row, so anomaly, is an anomaly. And as you can see, the last column in the right table, in that results table, detected by Dean because. And here the first anomaly detected is an anomaly because Dean tells us the posting key 35 for incoming vendor payment, this value is unusual. Okay, so we have the base table on the left. We have it here for general ledger. The base table is also available for accounts payable, accounts receivable, for purchasing, and a lot more areas. And if we use such a base table where we aggregate a lot of information and hand it over to Dean, Dean tells us where the anomalies are. And another feature of Dean is, Dean does not need any hints, expert advice, parameter settings of the user. Dean just simply needs an input table. Here the input is the GL base table, and then it hands out anomalies. And the cool thing is, Dean isn't just an AI, so it is not just an artificial intelligence, it is an explainable artificial intelligence. So in short, an XAI. And that explainability, is done in the last column on the right side, where Dean tells you why the given row is an outlier. Okay, so now we talked about the concept of base tables, Dean, and the results table. And on the next slide, we can again see the anomalies detected by Dean. Again, we have the primary key to uniquely specify each row. Then we have all the columns from the base table, so vendor, user, posting key, and so on. And here we are looking at the already found anomalies, and therefore we have the last column that tells us why each row, so anomaly, is indeed an anomaly. And as we have seen in the previous slide, the first anomaly is an anomaly because the posting key is unusual. So what does this even mean? So we have the general ledger base table, and that one has some or multiple million rows. And now let's have a look at the posting keys and their frequency. And in this visualization on the left side, we can see all the used posting keys, starting with 75 credit asset, 70 debit asset, and so on. And on the x-axis, we can just simply see the frequency, so how often those posting keys are getting used. And here we can see the 50 and the 40 are used more than 100,000 times. And now we can see from the detected by Dean, because the posting key 35, that one was only used once. And we had that question, what are anomalies? Anomalies are rows where at least a single value is unusual. And here, this posting key 35 was only used once, and therefore this row from a SAP document is an anomaly. The second anomaly Dean tells us is an anomaly because the username Miller and the cash discount of 160,000 euros makes that row an outlier. Again, if we further investigate this anomaly by plotting the visualization on the right, we can see on the y-axis different customers. On the x-axis, we can see the given cash discount. And in the title, you can already see the cash discount given by Miller. So here, the filter was done on user Miller. And we can see Miller, of course, has some variance in the cash discounts given to the customers. And here, I think all the values are in an interval between 0 and let's say 50 or 20K. And on top of that, you can see for the customer Novatech Innovations, the cash discount was 167,000. And by plotting this visualization, we can clearly see that this line item of that document given by the primary key is an outlier because that value is pretty high. Okay, up till now, we talked about base tables, we talked about Dean, we talked about anomalies. And till now, you have all just seen the anomalies on our PowerPoint slides. Philip, can you show us some anomalies in Power BI and how you would further investigate those anomalies?
Yeah, let me show you how we can visualize that whole thing in Power BI. I mean, it's always a little bit problematic as it's multi-dimensional. As Moritz already told you, our base tables have 200 columns, and almost all these 200 columns can be the reason for why they are an outlier. Not all columns, but most of them. And this is now some real data. Also, what Moritz already showed you is real data, which we pseudonymized a little bit. And so here you can see a dashboard which shows you our outliers detected. So on that upper right corner, we have the number of line items over the time. So here we can see how many outliers we have over the certain time. I just have now one specific company code, so we cannot colorize them by different company codes. But here you can see that we have from the value perspective, like is quite similar value every month. But you can see that over time, in the end of the year and in the beginning of the year, and sometime in April, there we have a little bit some peaks. We are at the moment looking at outliers or anomalies on the general ledger. So this can be explained, I would say, also through the year-end closing. So there are some not so very usual bookings you do once a year when it comes to year-end closing, that you do some rebookings, etc. So this can be one of the reasons we have in here. Then on the upper left corner, this is what Moritz explained to be the explainable AI. So we are giving you the columns on which we see that the outlier itself happened, or what is the outlying part of that specific document, general ledger document in our case. And then below, we can see the actual documents. And what we can see here is we have the fiscal year, we have the document number, and then the item number. Usually it is very important that you don't just look on the line item. We are trying to find anomalies on line item base, but to understand that line item, you also need to see the whole document itself. And as we can see here, the black one, or that's document number, these 4 items, that is the one document. And the red one, that is the outlier. So the outlying line item in that specific document. And then we can see that we have the base amount for the text base amount here in regional in reporting currency is the first column where it's detected, and the second column is the BSEC ALTKT. So the combination of these 2 fields lead to become the outlier itself. For the second thing we have here is our outlier is in that part the customer number and customer name. So DAP France SAS is here the outlier. So it looks like maybe we don't have any other documents for that specific customer. And so you can go through that list and look for the outliers. And I've already prepared a smaller list of outliers where we can directly have a look at inside of SAP. So as I've already been telling you in our process, usually, I mean, you can see a little bit inside these rows and columns, but to actually follow up, it might make sense to directly jump into SAP. And let's have a look on that document. So here we see that line item 1 and 3 are outlying. That's the text-based amount on the one hand, and that's the discountable amount on the other hand. And now we can make usage of the DAB link. So we click on this, and in the background, the DAB link calls our SAP system. You're logged in before, and then it calls the transaction, and you jump directly into the corresponding document. So now we are in the document we just looked at, so we can compare it. So it's the 5.1 and in the end the 5, the 5.1 and in the end the 5 of line item, different line items, and 1 and 3 are the outlying ones. And these are very high amounts we are looking at, and so we can have a further look, like on the purchasing document, to see why did we pay why do we have to pay like 100 million? And here we see that we ordered 1 million parts of Handelsware trading goods for a net price of 100 euro. So that is quite an amount. And if we would now be looking at all the other purchase orders we have in our system, we would easily see that usually we don't order 1 million for 100 million. So this is an outlier because of a very, very high volume. Nevertheless, the process in that case could be all fine. It is just an outlying amount and not a problem process-wise. Let's have a look at the second thing, at a second document, and then we can take maybe the first. So here we have a rebooking. That would be the column 1. That's the transaction text. So the transaction itself we used is one outlying thing in combination with the transactional thing. So here we have the outward stock movement, and the third thing is with US dollar as your currency. Let's have a look on how this looks like in SAP. And here we can see, okay, we have the company code 1000, which is, and this I can tell you, a German company code. We have the Fun Forever Board Game GmbH, so a German company, but the outward stock movement was booked in US dollar. So this is an outlier because it is an unusual combination that for a German company, the outward stock movement is booked in US dollar. And usually for a German company in your German, on your German stock, the valuation should be in euro, and therefore also the outward movement makes sense to have it in euro. So here it is not just one single column, which is outlying. Here it is the combination of these three columns which makes the difference in the thing to become an anomaly itself. And what we also have is a so-called outlier score, and this is something more. It is more or less calculating, and the outlier score can show you how similar it is to all the rest of the bookings, or how far away it is actually, or how unusual it is. And the higher the score, the more anomal, the more unusual that booking is. And that can also be because here we have actually three different columns. So that was a little bit a deep dive into how you could follow up with that using Power BI. You can also use like other stuff like Excel or whatever you are using in your company. And maybe Moritz, you can give us a small summarization of the Dean detection.
Of course. So now we have talked a lot about base tables, Dean, on results table, and Power BI dashboards. So let's quickly summarize the whole topic about Dean. So Dean is our software module for finding and detecting anomalies. And here you can see where Dean, the name, comes from. We just simply use the first two letters of detect and the first two letters of anomalies. And now Dean can be executed on our what we call base tables, where we aggregate a lot of information and columns from different SAP tables. And we have a base table for the general ledger. We have one for purchasing, for accounts payable, accounts receivable, sales and distribution, and many more. I think we have roughly 14 or 15 base tables for different areas. But on top of that, Dean can also be executed on individual customer build tables, so you are fully flexible there. On top of that, as I said before, Dean isn't just an AI, it is an XAI, because it explains why a detected outlier is an outlier. And that it is pretty comfortable because you don't need to give any hints, rules, expert advice, parameter settings, and so on. You just simply need to have a table, and that's it. The table is the only input Dean needs. Later on, we will send this presentation from today's webinar to all of you. And if you want to know more about outliers, feel free to read the linked blog post in here. Okay, that's it. And before we go to the Q&A, Philip, can you give us a little summarization of the whole presentation of today?
Yeah, of course. So what we have learned today is that with rule-based approaches, you can find rule breaches very easily if you can define the rule. So this is the old word, the conventional data analytics. The problem is you will not be able to find all creative workarounds with the rule, and some documents, bookings, etc., might be on a technical perspective fully okay, but nevertheless they are unusual or might be wrong. So unusual combinations, very large amounts, etc., etc. And for these documents, we have dubbed Dean, so the detection of anomalies and outliers. Here we do not need to follow any rules. We look for outlying documents, outlying data. So we look for unusual documents in your data. And that also means, on the other hand, that not everything we will find might be red flags, but I recommend all the anomalies we find might be worth a look at. And with that said, we end our today's webinar, not without having an outlook to our next one, which will be on the 11th of April, together with the chemical company BASF, where we, or Robert and the colleague from BASF, will talk about future-proofing data analytics for internal audit, insights from BASF's digital transformation journey. So here we show you on how a company actually uses DAP Nexus. If you are interested in that, you can directly register through the QR code, or again through all the typical channels like LinkedIn, etc., where we will share the event as well. And that leads us to the last point, but Q&A. But before we let you ask your questions, my colleagues have prepared also some questions for you. So please rate the webinar, or today's webinar, on the one hand, and on the other hand, we would like to also know that after attending the webinar, if you could envision yourself working with our solution, or if you could try out the solution, and if you want to know more about it. So these are our questions to you. And now I have seen that we have already quite some nice questions from the audience. I start at the very beginning, which I can answer pretty quickly. Can DIN be tested on ACL tables as well? We are using ACL robotics. Yes, that's fully possible. As I said in the beginning, our products are working on ACL diligent products as well as on the Microsoft stack. So it is fully possible to test DAP DIN also on ACL. Then Moritz, I have seen
Philip,
a lot of things for you.
Just quickly an information. Yeah, let's start with the first question, okay? Yeah. So there was one, thanks for. So there are two questions in one. Is DIN trained in a supervised manner based on ground truth information, past anomalies, or is it an unsupervised anomaly detector? Great question. So during that time, we implemented DIN, and we wanted to implement some system, some software to find anomalies. We played around with supervised and unsupervised algorithms. And of course, we played around with openly available algorithms. And we pretty quickly had the experience that we need some own algorithms here to find anomalies and to explain them. And so DIN is based on our own algorithm, and it is unsupervised. Why unsupervised? Of course, we discussed this topic of unsupervised and supervised. But the problem is, maybe for company A, an outlier is not an outlier like in company B. So processes, data, information is much different across different company codes or companies. And so therefore, labels will not work pretty well if we have such a general software like DIN. So DIN is based on our own algorithms, and DIN is unsupervised. Then, so no, we do not use LIME or SHAP values because it is our own algorithm, and we use some other techniques here, because LIME and SHAP will not tell you why the outlier is an outlier. You will get local interpretable explanations, but those are not readable for non-data scientists.
Okay. I have read in the meantime a little bit while you were answering, so I can now give you the questions. We have also one question if we use large language models on this, but you answered it a little bit, but maybe some more words to that.
Of course. So, of course, since 2023 and the rise of ChatGPT, this question is understandable. So no, we do not use LLMs in Dean. And how to ensure data assist. Okay, the data privacy or protection thing. So Dean is integrated into our software, and the good thing is your data, your tables, your input has not to be shared with us or any cloud provider. You do it on your server or on your laptop, on your PC. So you don't have to share any data or information. So you don't have a data privacy or protection problem.
Okay, then we have a question. Have you used decision rule-based XAI approaches such as scope rules to explain the anomalies further?
No, we did not use this technology. So let me quickly approach this. No, we do not, because as I said earlier, we have our own algorithms because we quickly experienced that the open available algorithms and techniques do not perform well on such big SAP tables. And that was the reason why we implemented Dean on our own with own algorithms.
Thanks for answering this. Then I have a few questions which I can easily answer. So there's one question where can Dean be tuned to ignore certain sort of anomalies that pop up again and again and again, and that are found to be okay? So I would say yes, because what we don't need to do it in Dean, but we can. I mean, we said that Dean is based on our base tables, and we can always filter our base tables according to what we have learned in the past. So if we see that we have certain company codes which are only there for handling some small stuff, which are pretty, or which are always a little bit strange, bookings, etc., we can filter them out. We can filter special transactions upfront, etc., etc. What we are not doing is that we try to adjust the AI algorithm, because as Moritz explained, we are always looking for outlying statistically abnormal postings. And there you cannot say, yeah, you are abnormal, but we don't define you as abnormal. So that's why in the pre-processing of the data, everything is possible. And then we do the statistically abnormal things afterwards. Then there's a question. Not sure I understand the integration with Microsoft. Could I use Dean with the Nexus as well? Yes, of course. The DAB Nexus is part of or the whole Microsoft because you use it on a Microsoft SQL server. So that is the database and the engine for DAB Nexus. And you can even purchase it through Microsoft Azure Marketplace. And this is fully, or it's possible to integrate it fully on the Power Platform. Nevertheless, DAB Nexus is the product you are also using inside the Microsoft universe. So do you have any good examples where Dean made some significant impact if this is already tested by some of your customers? Yeah, we can say that I have done it in a public institution. There we do the year-end closing, and we look for, because cities in Germany, they are giving their own, or they don't need an external auditor for the year-end closings and for the balance sheets, etc. And they want to know whether they did everything correct. And we let this run on the general ledger for them, and there they found some combinations where they saw, okay, that in the future we need to be more precise in the way which combinations we allow and we don't, because they were quite some things which could have been done better in a different way, much nicer. So we have quite some customers, and also the data you just saw is real data. So that's based on customers' own data, which we have anomalized and which is usable. So we have already some customers using this for internal audit preparation, for example, one of my Swedish customers, they are using this before they go in an audit. They let Dean run, and with the amount of Dean, so they have quite some documents which they want to check up front, which are not rule-based, but where they say, okay, these were quite some strange things, and where also the people in the companies had further looks. And more details, I don't know, because I'm also an external for them. So all the other stuff which happens in the end, I'm a little bit out.
Okay, there is another question. Is it possible to switch from SAP fields technical to their descriptions? Short answer, yes, it is.
Correct.
And that makes
we just
fully
use
sense.
it.
Yes.
We just use it for the detection, because then it doesn't matter in which language you use it. That's how we showed it today. But depending on the language, it can be different. So in the technical, in the what we do, we always use the technical names, and the translation can be then done as well on a good Power BI, where you can combine some data models, etc. You can then bring back the speaking names.
So are there any limits in terms of data to be managed by the mentioned tools? Of course, there are always limits, but we use Dean with, for example, the GL base table with the 200 columns and I think 15 million rows. And that was doable by Dean. So of course, there will be some limit, some physical limit, but we processed millions of rows with Deans without a problem. Okay, I think, Philip, there is another question for you. The answer on the impact was not very precise, to be honest. With impact, I mean fraud, wrong bookings in a material amount, and so on.
Yeah, a lot of things. Actually, I cannot be more precise because we are not part of the follow-up process in the companies. But usually what we do is we offer a POC period, so a proof of concept or content. And customers can use our software for free then for like 30 days, use it maybe on their first audit. And all the customers who used it on a POC basis also then subscribe to it. So that means if they didn't see an added value, I would say they would not have paid any money for this. So this is the only thing I can actually tell you. I'm very sorry to not be more precise. I know that we found some wrong stuff in the city we were talking about, but I cannot give you any impact and what that actually made.
But of course, we can fully understand this question, and maybe let me answer it the other way around. All of those anomalies we detected for our customers are statistically unusual, and they always tell us, okay, those bookings, those line items, those referring documents are exotic. If they are business critical, if there is fraud, we cannot know because they will not tell us because we are not participating during the follow-up. But all of those findings are, let's call it, exotic.
Okay, it's 11:29, so our time is almost done. Let's say thank you very much for attending today's webinar and also to stay that long with us. On the next slide, again, if you want to know more about it, if you want to get in contact with us, just let us know. Moritz, can you click one more slide? Then you can see the email address, our telephone number. Get in contact with us also through LinkedIn or whatever. We are all also in the appointments in LinkedIn. And have a great rest of the day wherever you are. I know we are pretty international today, so enjoy the day, and happy to see you in one of our next webinars again.
So have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.